Welcome to another episode of the Doctors Building Wealth podcast. Today we have Austin Dean joining us again. He is the founder and CEO of Waystone Advisors. And we interviewed him before where we talked to him about how he does financial advising very differently than most financial planners. What he does is he incorporates alternative investments, including real estate, which is really unique in the industry.
And today we'll be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about how traditional financial planning, where it's really focused on retirement, is different from what Austin does. And we're going to be talking about creating multiple sources of income and how that can be done as a physician working full-time, using real estate and other methods. So welcome, Austin, to the episode.
It's great to be back, guys. It's always fun having time to talk to you guys about unique financial strategies and tools.
So Austin, a lot of us as physicians were told, hey, get financial advisor, and we go to financial advisories and they talk a lot about retirement and planning for retirement. Can you talk to us kind of about the approach that you use and how it's a little bit different?
Absolutely. And just, to start with the more traditional approach that most people do is, they go to an advisor, and most advisors are taught that same traditional approach of let's put almost everything, if not everything, into the stock market, diversify it. Let's put our money that's in the stock market in retirement vehicles that have restrictions and penalties, and really just give the government more control over our money and how we can use it than we have over that money. For us, fundamentally at Waystone Advisors, we believe that financial independence should be and could be closer than people think it is. That means rethinking how we build wealth. That means prioritizing putting money into vehicles where we have more control, where we have more flexibility, unlearning things we thought we knew, learning new things, understanding how to use real estate and debt and other financial tools that give the ability to be able to, as you mentioned earlier, create cash flow and be able to do it on our timeline, the way with the way we want to do it, to be able to design life on our terms and on our schedule.
Yeah, so I want to first start by kind of giving people a little bit of context, because people might be listening to this and say, well, I thought that really the way to diversify, the way to invest was just the stock market. So a lot of people don't even know about alternative investments, or maybe they know about real estate, but they don't know it's a type of alternative investment. So can you talk a little bit about alternative investments and how the average person normally invests versus how your group that you're advising usually invest?
Yeah, absolutely. So alternative investments, just for those who don't know, that's a very broad term that can apply to a variety of things. Real estate's probably the most well-known, and there's a variety of different ways to invest in real estate, whether that's passively in syndications or actively by managing your own properties. I know we've talked quite a bit about short-term rentals and the tax benefits around that. There's ways to put money into private lending or private credit. There's oil and gas. There's private equity, which is a variety of different things, but oftentimes understood as pre-IPO companies. So these are all non-traditional alternative investments. For us, we're also a big fan of blending in assets that are more flexible. That can be as simple as investing in the market, but not inside of a retirement investment account. That could be putting money into things, the correctly designed life insurance policy, but then bringing in banks and having the ability to leverage your assets, make your assets do multiple things at the same time. For those who aren't familiar, we like to help people create more return on equity, if you will, of their assets, make their money work harder, do multiple things. And that can be putting money into real estate, but not always doing it directly, funneling it through other assets, leveraging it, have it do multiple things, which is unique and requires a lot of education and honestly more learning than somebody who is taught to just stick their money into their retirement account, put it in 4 or 5 mutual funds or ETFs, and then hope that I have enough money when I'm 60, 65. Right?
Yeah, I want people to really kind of understand the difference here. And you're talking about a traditional financial planner is taking your money, investing it for your retirement, and like you said, they may be putting it in vehicles that are locking that money up. We call it money jail, or we both call it money jail. Your money's in jail. If you take it out, you're going to be penalized, and it's there for someday in the future.
And
right?
It doesn't produce cash flow that you can use.
Right. And that's just so different. And again, I just want people to understand that this is about creating financial freedom for you today, like sooner rather than kind of waiting for some time in the future. And like you said, the cash flow is a key part of that, right? And so I would imagine that this completely changes the advice that you give to somebody, right? Retirement planning versus, hey, let me try to figure out a way to create financial freedom for you sooner. So can you talk about that?
Absolutely. We've had quite a few doctors come to us over the years that, this is very interesting. They'll come and they'll have high net worth paper statements, sometimes as much as 10, 20 million invested in real estate or in certain assets. But oftentimes, because they'll be chasing the deduction or just putting money into places that they're like, real estate's a good idea, and it often is, but they're not doing it to create financial freedom. So they'll come and actually have negative cash flow and find themselves having what most people would say is, wow, you're really rich, you're really wealthy, but still trapped in their job because their assets aren't actually creating the income needed to replace their need to work to continue to feed their financial system. So being aware of what actually creates financial independence. It's not having a larger net worth statement. It's having cash flow that can pay your bills, that can allow you to design life the way you want, allow you to be able to say, I'm working because I want to, not because I have to. Right?
Yeah, I think this is such an important thing for people to understand. It's not common. Tony Robbins, we do a lot of Tony Robbins stuff. He calls it creating a cash machine. And so what he talks about is taking money from your income or your business and making sure you every month take some portion of that income or from your business and put it into investments that create cash flow, because that's ultimately what's going to be able to set you free sooner. It's not going to be having a giant retirement account. It doesn't do anything for you until you're 65 plus, right? So how do people approach this? So like, let's say we're completely new to this. We're sitting down with you. How do you talk about what are the right alternative investments? How do you talk about the types of cash flow returns that people should expect from each type? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd almost step back for a second and say when people are first getting into this, there's a lot of learning they have to do. They have to understand, know more of like, what are those tools? What does that look like? And I said this earlier, but I see most people have to do a lot of unlearning. Like it's really common to step into and just lean into that, especially for doctors, the traditional mindset of max funding 401ks, putting money in the market, getting their head down. And then, even the idea of doing something other than that feels a little scary because it's against the common wisdom. It's typically not what any of their friends or coworkers are doing. Right? So being willing to have a different mindset shift. Something that we've talked about before, but even that idea of like financial freedom planning versus traditional retirement planning, I'd almost say the first step is less about having a retirement goal versus a financial freedom goal, but more of having a financial freedom mindset instead of a retirement mindset. One where if you're saying, I'm actually rethinking what are the assets that give me control, that give me cash flow, that allow me to be able to design life on purpose. And that's going to start leading us towards, okay, what are the things I need to learn about? Like, I need to learn about how debt works. Like, I need to think about, like, is insurance good or bad? Is real estate good or bad? What, private lending, how do we do that? And how do we vet it properly? And that's, certainly our team, in partnership with you guys, like we have a lot of vetting process, but people should understand what the risks are and learn how to do some of their own initial research so they can, enter into financial freedom mindset confidently.
Yeah, that's such an important point, I think, to bring up, which is that most of us don't even think it's possible, right? Most of us are taught you don't retire until you're 65, so they don't even consider that it's a possibility to be able to create this cash machine to be able to get there much, much earlier. And so because of that, you don't ask the right questions and you don't put a focus on it. And so it never happens. So when you change that point of thinking, now all of a sudden you're like, this is possible. How can I do it? And who can help me do it, right? It always comes down to the who's. So when you sit down to do this, how do you think through it? Like, what are some of the questions and some of the things that people need to keep in the forefront of their minds so that they can start to actually make it a reality?
Yeah. That's a great question. And there are a variety of things. So for us, we tell our clients that first and foremost, Like we need to define their goals and use those as a lens for financial decision making. Now, oftentimes, especially people who are transitioning from a traditional retirement mindset to financial freedom mindset, need some help with defining what should those goals look like. So figuring out, saying, okay, when do we want to be financially independent, and helping people understand that doesn't mean when do I quit my job and I'm just done with life. That's when do I have the cash flow and the flexibility to be able to say, I'm doing what I want because it feels meaningful, whether that's spending more time with my family or continuing to do the job or starting a business, but creating the flexibility to do things on purpose, not because you're stuck in them. So defining how much do you need, but we also typically want to help our clients define the more like the less financial pieces and more kind of what would it feel like? Like when you get to that point, what's going to matter? What's going to drive you there? Is it being able to walk your kid to the bus in the morning if you want to? Is it being able to travel more, make those memories without having to wait 20 years? Being able to start that coffee shop. I have a client who says, I want to eventually have a Christmas tree farm. And I'm like, great. Well, let's create the cash flow for you to be able to not worry about if that makes money or not, right? So doing that, but also, so that's the first lens, is how do we have goals that allow us to filter in our decision making? But ideally somebody who then works with us, or really, is stepping into that different framework of financial freedom. They're aligning themselves with a unique philosophy that comes with some extra questions that we typically ask, which is, hey, if we put money there, if we make that financial decision, does that give us more control or less? Does that financial decision allow us to be financially independent sooner or later? And it's those kinds of questions that we also want to layer on when figuring out, does this give me the financial freedom that I'm looking for?
Hey, it's Leti from Semi-Retired MD. I wanted to personally invite you to something Kenji and I are really excited about. It's called the Legally Lower Your Taxes Bootcamp. 4 nights, completely free, starting February 15th. And here's why we're doing this. When Kenji and I were practicing full-time, we were making great money, but we were also watching a huge chunk of it disappear to taxes every single year. Sound familiar? And honestly, it frustrated us a little. Not because we didn't want to pay our fair share in taxes, but because no one ever told us there was another way. And there was. So we figured it out ourselves. We started investing in real estate, and that very first year, we were legally paying 0 in federal income taxes. And we did that for 7 years in a row. Not because of some shady trick, but because how the tax code actually works when you're an investor instead of just a W-2 earner. And that changed everything for us. Now, over 4,500 doctors have learned our system. And this month, we're teaching it to you for free. In our bootcamp, we're going to cover why doctors overpay in taxes and what you can do about it, the exact framework we use to reduce our taxes for 7 years in a row, how to find great real estate deals in this market, and how to build towards making your job optional in years, not decades. This is the stuff we wish someone had taught us when we were first starting out. So if you're tired of watching your hard-earned money disappear, or you're curious about what's possible for you with real estate, or you just want to see how the tax code can actually work in your favor, come join us. It's free, it's live, and it might just change everything for you. Click the link to register. We start February 15th. We'll see you there.
What's the difference in terms of advice between somebody who's like going to a traditional planner and retirement planning, and versus what you're doing, helping them generate some cash flow? Like, what are some of the kind of go-to tools or investment opportunities that you're pointing them towards, just to give the audience an idea of how different it is?
Absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, like we're going to be looking at things, quite a bit differently. So, in a lot of ways, we've become the anti-retirement account. Now, we have clients who have retirement accounts because it doesn't make sense for everybody who has saved hundreds or millions of dollars to blow that up and do something different. But we're oftentimes going to say, okay, let's look at your cash flow and let's redirect it to things that are more flexible, right? And that can be non-retirement investment accounts. That can be, and I know this can be controversial, but a well-designed life insurance policy that's leverageable with tax benefits. That could also be potentially putting it directly into into alternative investments. I mean, for clients that have the money that want to be financially independent as quickly as possible, sometimes we say, you know what, let's pump that money into a private lend, a few different private lending funds, have it diversified. But if we can create a blended, cash flow that's getting you 13, 15, 18%, like that can really change almost immediately how people are feeling, and as far as being trapped in their jobs or being able to step into is this possible?
Are people oftentimes, are you helping them get into many different investments? Or are you doing like the 13 to 15 to 18, like Ray Dalio kind of alternative investments that are uncorrelated? Or are people usually just doing a few that they feel comfortable with?
It depends on the client and their situation, and of course how much money they have. Now, I think we are big fans of having some intentional risk mitigation, which comes with diversification being one of the best ways for that. If somebody has too much money in any one asset or one vehicle, that naturally has risk, right? So now, we have clients, a lot of our doctors we work together on, they have real estate, but some of them want to add cash flow in things that are non-real estate. So we'll blend in other assets, whether that's private lending, credit, micro lending. That can be even we're exploring oil and gas, like those kinds of things that are different. That if somebody has enough money for us to be able to place it in multiple things to still create income, create some different appreciation and or tax benefits, but without having their plan rely on any one asset, is a better way to build wealth sustainably.
Now, if somebody has an investment and it's generating cash, what do you do then? Do you kind of take that, put it into different asset classes? Do you put it back into the investment? Kind of what's your philosophy around that?
Yeah. We want people's money to create a flywheel where it's always doing multiple things at once and growing, while they sleep, right? So that's where if somebody has cash flow that they don't need to live off of right now, investing that into assets, whether that's, like I said, the insurance, the investments, assets that are growing, that have tax benefits, but there's no restrictions, that we can either pull out or we can more preferably leverage, so our money is doing two things at once. We'll do that, and then we'll cycle that into adding more alternatives or scaling up what they already have, so their money is growing in multiple places, and that passive income, as it increases, we just make the flywheel even bigger. Right?
Yeah, I have to tell you both actually that this week or maybe last week in Facebook, I saw a post by a physician, and what they said is, I'm starting a new process where I'm going to spend less each day than I make each day. And today is day one, and I made $0 and I spent $1,000. And I sat there and I was like, what do you mean you made $0? Well, they didn't work as a physician that day. But what they were missing is this. They're missing cash flow that makes money when they sleep. And so they don't have assets, alternative assets that are creating cash flow for them. And so, gosh, what a difficult situation to be in when you're trying to spend less than you make, but there are days where you make $0. There should never be any days that you're making $0. You just haven't learned to invest if that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's where, something that we joke about with our clients is like, you don't get to financial freedom by max funding your 401ks and making coffee at home, right? Like, you need to make your money work harder. And if we're taking a page out of the playbook of the most wealthy, that's where, they tend to be people that build businesses, buy businesses, invest in real estate, learn how to become the bank, understand how to use debt as a tool, not as something that's a morally good or bad thing. And if you're doing that, that allows you to make your money do multiple things at once. That allows you to have cash flow from your business, from your real estate, from lending out your assets and supporting other people, building wealth in unique ways. But to your point, absolutely. Like, somebody has to learn how to make money while they're sleeping.
And have a philosophy that that's what they want to do. Because again, I think that most people don't realize that it's even possible to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So talking about some of the maybe mistakes that you see people make, can you talk through some of the most common ones you see people do with retirement planning and financial advising in general?
Yeah, I'd say if I were to summarize like what I see as the biggest mistake, or even just like a risk that even like common wisdom provides, is it's encouraging people to put money into places that take away their control and give that control to another entity, right? Some really common ones. I mean, obviously, retirement accounts. That's putting money into places that take away your control, add penalties, add time restrictions, and gives the IRS and the government more control over that money than you. I'd also even advocate for paying down your mortgages early. That's taking money that you could be making money on, giving it to the bank, and then the bank has to decide if they want to let you have that access again or not. So being aware of, if I put that dollar there, is it giving me more control or less control? Is a really common one. I'd also say another thing is seeing clients conflate unique strategies with financial freedom strategies. I had a unique conversation last year with some clients that, these are, doctor tech combo. They're in their late 30s, want to be financially independent sometime between 45 and 50. And they email me and say, hey, I was on a FIRE website, financial independence, retire early. And it told me that I need to be doing the mega backdoor Roth IRA 401k conversion, right? And I said, hey, can we take a moment and just recognize that the FIRE website is telling you to put money into places that have restrictions until you're 59 and a half or later, right? I'm like, that's an exciting, common, but still I'd say common traditional wisdom advanced planning tool. But as exciting as that is, we want to be prioritizing putting your money in places that are accessible now, that can be leveraged, that can be creating cash flow, and that's not going to get you to financial independence at 45.
Yeah, I think a big theme I'm hearing today, right, is about control and control of your money and having options, right? And so I think that is something that is so refreshing to hear, especially because we stopped putting money into our retirement account because of the idea of like having it locked up and somebody else controlling it and not having access to it really was not appealing to us. And so
except the match.
Yeah, except the employer match, right?
Right, so, to that point.
Right, that's the only thing. Yeah, free money
is free money.
I'm good with free money, but other than that, once that free money is gone, no, thank you. Now, I wanted to actually talk about taxes because so many of our community is focused on taxes and tax savings and being tax efficient. So how do you kind of approach that, right? When you kind of make decisions about investment opportunities, how do you kind of think about taxes? Are you looking to kind of maximize tax efficiency and as well as like maybe helping them create some tax shelters?
Yeah. Absolutely. Tax is a huge impact because tax can be one of the fastest ways to have your money disappear, right, is in taxes. But the other side of the coin that we got to be aware of is most vehicles that create tax deductions require either putting that money in places that are locked up. Obviously retirement accounts are a common one that put restrictions, or willingness to put in a bunch of extra work that somebody that needs to be aware of, like what is that extra effort that's going to create that tax deduction for me, or potentially giving up principal and creating illiquidity. So that's where something like we're a big fan of, for the right situation, oil and gas or STRs or those kinds of things. But we want people who invest in those to understand that either like, hey, here's the extra effort that's going to have to be required, or here is the principal that I'm giving up in exchange for those tax benefits. So sometimes part of the question is looking with our clients at, is that tax benefit worth giving up control or giving away some of my time to get it?
Yeah, makes sense. Is there anything you'd like people to know who are saying, hey, okay, I want to sit down with a financial advisor. I really want to understand where I am now and to plan for financial freedom. What should they know coming into that meeting, and what should they be looking for in the person they're going to work with? Yeah.
The person that they're going to work with, whether it's us or somebody else, like they should have, ideally they should have thought about their goals a little bit first of, what does financial freedom mean to me? When do I want that to be? And be able to ask that advisor, what is your understanding around your real estate and alternatives, and what's your experience helping people become financial independent sooner than the traditional 60 to 65 age? I'm a big fan of any kind of professional, but certainly financial advisors. When you work with them, ideally it's somebody who is independent, so they're not trying to sell you something, but have the ability to have the resources to help you with your goals. Ideally, a trusted person, whether it's through a podcast or a community or a friend, somebody that you say, okay, we know enough about your character because of these trust bridges. But ideally, they have experience and knowledge helping people do the thing that you want to be able to do. So if you're working with a financial advisor, ideally you want to be able to say, hey, have you helped other people be financially independent sooner? And bonus points for that advisor if they're actually doing the things that you want to also be doing personally.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing I've always really respected in you is you're doing a lot of alternative investing yourself and putting your own money on the line to test these relationships, see how it works out. It's a really cool thing because it's just so rare. I mean, we've had the experience of going to financial advisors and saying we have real estate, and they're like, oh, okay. That's okay. That's over here. Let's talk about all your other money. They don't even pay attention to alternative investments, and it's all the stock market. You're literally out there finding alternative investments and testing them, which I think is so cool.
Yeah, I think it's just such a different goal. It's like compared to, I think for a lot of them, it's like, let me put you into these different products, right? Versus, I came up with a new term for you, which is like, you're not a financial advisor, you're a financial freedom advisor, right? Yeah. And so I think it's very cool, and it's a very different focus, and it's focused on the client and their goal, which I have to say a lot of us are looking for financial freedom, bottom line.
As fast as possible.
As fast as possible, yeah.
That's what we like.
Last week, right?
That's right.
Okay, Austin, can you tell everyone how they can get a hold of you if they're like, yes, I want to get to financial freedom and I want an advisor who actually is focused on that?
Absolutely. If people are excited about the things we've been talking about today and want financial freedom, probably the easiest way is to go to our website and fill out the process for our team to then reach out for a discovery meeting. Otherwise, if somebody wants to go even more direct, they can email our team at info@waystoneadvisors.com, and we have our client advocate team who will reach out to coordinate schedules with one of our lead, what we call wealth design advisors, to have a discovery call to see, is this a good fit? And we'd love to see if that would make sense, because it's more often than not, financial independence is closer than people think it is.
Beautiful. Thank you, Austin, for your time today and for helping so many in our community.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.